I'm going to talk about how your brand could communicate in the UK. And I'm going to focus on three things: why you should even consider doing some PR, some public relations, what sort of PR that could be, and the challenges that I see for Chinese brands from my perspective. So starting with why you should do PR at all, it's true, a lot of companies, when they come to the UK, when they come to London, think it's best at the early stages to keep their head down, because that way they won't attract any negative attention. And that is true up to a point, but your reputation, your brand's reputation, is also made by what others say about you. So are you prepared to let your reputation, your company's reputation, your brand, in effect be managed by others? And those could be your competitors. PR is all about earning understanding and support and influencing opinion and behaviour. And you don't get that automatically, you have to work at it. And also in the UK, it is pretty much expected that all the big brands are investing in their marketing, in their PR, and it's a very natural way for them to do business. If you decided to enter this market, you're going to have to compete with them. As I said earlier, a lot of the companies we see are coming to London, and that's often their first territory abroad. And what we do is we look at their brand and we ask them questions from a PR point of view. Things like, what makes it right for the UK market? What promises it going to deliver? Who's the right target audience? How's it different from the competition? Is your competition successful? And if so, why and what are they doing? You really need to think about how your brand communicates in the UK. One type of PR that we get asked a lot about is events, a reception or a launch event. And a lot of people think if they've done that, they can tick that box and say, I've done my PR. But you cannot expect to educate people and to change their behaviours and opinions with just one interaction. You have to keep working at it. On a very practical level, one of the things we often start with a client is perhaps their website or their brochure, and helping make it relevant to the UK audience. And we've even worked with some clients where we write their emails when they're writing to prospective customers to get the language right, because there is a very different style for each country. And you might think, again, going back to brand attributes, that facts and figures are going to convince people about your brand. But it's much more intangible elements. And as you sit there presenting, the person watching you is thinking, can I work with you? Do I trust you? Do I understand what you're trying to do in the UK? So, for example, we're just advising a German company about their website in the UK. Although you will see consistency in terms of the brand and the logo and the colours that are used, for example, on the UK website and the German website, actually, the pages, the website will be constructed very differently for the UK, because it will reflect what the UK target audience wants to see. Most people think of PR in terms of coverage in the media, and that's obviously a lot of what we do. There is so many media opportunities. We heard this morning about a lot of the world's global media is based in London. There is a huge amount of opportunity for you. Social media as well presents a huge opportunity for your brand. So the challenges, I think, for Chinese brands, we did some research, and it is 4 years old, but I checked it through with Sasha and Roger and said, do you think it's still relevant? And the major issues there, when we asked people, opinion formers, MPs, about the key barriers for entry in the UK market, were, from the top, things like differences in business style, the lack of UK recognition of Chinese brands. As we've said, we don't know many Chinese brands in the UK. And then also the lack of understanding of perhaps how marketing is done in the West, in London. There are other things like language, obviously, cultural factors. So the big challenge, I think, from my point of view, is that we don't know, the UK consumer doesn't know many Chinese brands. And what we really need is lots of Chinese brands to do really well in London, to make it easier for all the other Chinese brands that follow. So more communication, more engagement with your audience, more PR, obviously, from my point of view. You've got to just tell them how good your brands are, and you need to keep telling them how good your brands are.
when you're taking a brand global, do you think it is better to have an advocate who is of that country? So do you want a British advocate who wants a Chinese brand, or is it better to have a Chinese advocate because they're much more credible, because they obviously have experienced the brand in their home country?
I think the quick answer is it depends on the brand, actually. I mean, when we've done work, yes, we've promoted sort of Chinese companies using their spokespeople. It really depends what you're trying to get across, what your message is, and whether they are the right person. We would say that in the UK as well. It's picking the right person to represent your brand or to talk on behalf of your brand has to be, as we've all been saying, very true to the brand values. So there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just making sure that the person you do pick would be appropriate both for your brand and also for the audience that you're talking to. The first answer is to start a lot further back with your communications. So I would say to any company thinking of coming over, there is an advantage to talking very, very early to the people, to the stakeholders, the people who are, maybe going to hold a placard or who could be people that will be on your side. But you do need to get to them very, very early, and so that can start up to a year in advance before you come to the UK or before you go anywhere, that you need to find out who those key influencers are going to be for your business, and you start talking to them. And that doesn't necessarily mean through the media, because that's a very public conversation. And as I say, although PR relies a lot on the media, it's not the only thing we do. But these are the people that you need to be talking to very early on. Internal communications is an element of PR, which is making sure that you're keeping one of your key stakeholders, which is employees or potential employees, on side. So the quick answer is to not start where you are, but to start a long way further back and to be talking to people. If you get to that stage where you are getting some sort of adverse comment, then actually it's almost going to overdrive with your communication. Do even more of it. Invite people in. Invite the people who are saying, perhaps saying slightly more negative things. Talk to them. Bring them into your, whatever it is, your office, your factory, whatever it might be, and show them and talk to them. And generally speaking, as I said before, it's about influencing attitudes and behaviours, and you don't get that on an instant sort of first meeting. You've got to keep talking to them. So, but I would take it probably out of the media side and do it, within the confines of more sort of private conversations, more stakeholder engagement. And that can be through things like newsletters, or it doesn't just have to be behind shut doors, but more communication rather than less, I guess.